Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The storm outside had turned our neighborhood into a blur of slick black pavement and shivering trees. Rain pelted the roof as I stepped into my house. Quiet, calm, a little too calm. I didn't call out her name. Didn't hang up my coat. I just walked straight to the bedroom. The second the door swung open, time slowed. Melissa was there. My wife. Her hair messy, skin flushed, body pressed up against a man I'd never seen before but instantly knew far too much about. She gasped. The man didn't. He sat up slowly, his bare chest rising as he grinned. Guess you're home early, huh? His voice was slick, like he practiced charming judges and scaring teenagers in a courtroom. He didn't flinch, didn't apologize. Just looked me up and down like I was the help who had interrupted. You must be Jake, Melissa's husband, he said, reaching calmly for his watch on my nightstand. You're a little quieter than I expected. I stepped forward. Just one step. Enough for the door to shut behind me. And you must be the man who thinks he's untouchable, I said flatly. His grin didn't move. That depends. You planning to make this physical? That'd be a mistake. I'm a state prosecutor. You lay a finger on me, and you'll be the one doing push-ups in county lockup. Melissa was frozen. Sheets pulled to her chest, eyes wide, mascara streaking like the storm outside. I tilted my head. Relax. I'm not going to touch you. He shrugged. Smart man. Then I guess we're done here. I raised an eyebrow. We're not. He paused. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. Opened a folder. Turned the screen toward him. His eyes flicked down. The image on the screen showed him entering my house 3 days ago, kissing Melissa just inside the hallway. He blinked. Then another video. Bedroom. Different day. Different angle. The color drained from his face. I had cameras installed 2 weeks ago. Didn't mention them. Didn't need to. But here's the part you'll really enjoy. I tapped the screen once more. Your wife already saw all of this. His mouth opened, but no words came out. She didn't take it well. I continued. Said something about divorce, full custody, and letting the bar association handle what comes next. Now the panic hit. Fast. He jumped from the bed like he'd been electrocuted, yanking his pants on with clumsy hands. You're bluffing. I wish I was. She wasn't supposed to. How did she? He stopped, breathing hard, eyes darting like a cornered animal. You sent it to her? I nodded. Last night. Anonymous. Just wanted her to know where her husband spends his Tuesdays. He turned to Melissa, who hadn't moved. You didn't tell me he was? I didn't know, she cried. Jake, please, I didn't think. That's obvious, I muttered. The man cursed under his breath and yanked his shirt over his head. Listen, he said, his voice shaking now. All that courtroom swagger gone. You don't want to mess with me. You think this is over, but you've made a real enemy. I smiled just slightly. No, I think you already did. He stared at me, stunned. Then, without another word, he bolted. The door slammed behind him. And suddenly, the only sound left in the room was the storm and Melissa's shaky breathing. I didn't move, just stood there, staring down at her. Melissa sat hunched on the edge of the bed, my bed, wrapped in a bedsheet like it was armor. Her back trembled. She wiped at her face with the heel of her palm, smudging mascara into a dark, war paint blur across her cheekbones. You weren't supposed to come home today, she whispered. I thought you had that site inspection in Macon. Yeah, I said. I did. Finished early. She tried to laugh. It came out like a cough. Of course you did. I watched her pick at the edge of the sheet like a nervous child. Then suddenly, her voice cracked open. Jake, please, it wasn't like that. Wasn't like what? Her lips parted, but she stalled. Then, eyes darting up to mine, she spoke fast, desperate. It didn't mean anything. I swear to you. I don't even know why I did it. It was just stupid. It was just excitement. That's all. Excitement. I repeated quietly, like I was testing the weight of the word. She nodded too fast, too eagerly. Yes, that's all it was. He flattered me. He made me feel something I hadn't felt in a while. And I don't know, I didn't plan it. I didn't want to ruin us. I swear to God, Jake, I never meant for it to go that far. She was crying now, fully, hands shaking, voice unraveling. I made a mistake, a horrible, awful mistake. And I hate myself for it. Please believe that. I didn't believe her. Not because I thought she was lying, but because mistake didn't fit the way she had giggled on that video. How many times had he come here? How many afternoons had I been out working while she was pulling those blinds shut? You know what's crazy, Melissa? I said, stepping a little closer. You're not even apologizing for doing it. You're apologizing for getting caught. She shook her head. No, that's not true. Jake, I swear to you. You swear a lot for someone who lies this easily. Her hands dropped into her lap. She looked so small. I wanted to feel something, some twist of pity or rage or even heartbreak. But I felt nothing. Just a clear, cold emptiness settling into place. She took a breath, her tone softening like it used to when she wanted to win a fight. Can we just talk? Please? We've been through worse things, haven't we? Remember when you lost your job at Monroe? We barely made rent, and I stayed. I was here for that. Doesn't that count for anything? Yeah, I said. You stayed. I thought that meant something. Guess I was wrong about that too. She stood up then, wrapped tight in that sheet like it could still protect her from the truth. Are you really going to throw 8 years away over one mistake? I turned toward the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and dropped it on the bed beside her. I'm not throwing anything, I said calmly. I'm asking you to pack it. Her jaw dropped open. You're kicking me out? No, I said. I'm asking you to leave. Jake, I mean it. You want excitement? I looked her dead in the eyes. Then I want to feel excitement when you pack your things and leave. The air sucked out of the room. She clutched the sheet tighter, like she might fall apart without it. Where would I even go? I shrugged. Wherever he is. He's not answering his phone right now, but I'm sure he'll come around when the bar investigation cools off. Her mouth opened, closed. She had no words. Just a raw, silent ache in her stare. The rest happened slowly. She pulled clothes off hangers, folded them into the suitcase in silence. Her hands moved like they belonged to someone else, jerky, stiff. Every few minutes she paused and looked at me, like she wanted me to say something, stop her, offer some kind of mercy. I didn't. Not once. By the time she zipped the suitcase shut, the sun had dipped below the blinds and painted the living room in long gray shadows. She wheeled it out quietly, heels clacking against the hardwood. Stopped at the door. Jake, she said one last time. I didn't answer. She waited, just a second longer, and then walked out into the cold, wet Atlanta dusk. The door clicked shut, and I stood alone in the stillness that followed. 3 days later, I found myself sitting at a corner table in a bakery called Hazel's, just off Peachtree. Rain tapped lightly against the windows again, like the weather itself hadn't moved on from that day. I stirred my coffee. It tasted sharp and honest, kind of like the woman sitting across from me. Vanessa looked exactly how I imagined a state prosecutor's wife might look. Perfect posture, tailored jacket, a diamond on her hand that could blind a careless man. But there was something more. A fire behind her eyes. A fury that had settled into focus. She raised her cup in mock cheer. To public scandals and private cameras. I smirked. To poetic justice. Seriously, she said, setting her cup down and leaning forward. You should have seen him when I confronted him. This man, who once threatened to sue a dog groomer for scratching his Lexus, was literally on his knees. Knees, Jake. She widened her eyes for emphasis, then burst out laughing. And you said nothing? I asked. Oh, I said plenty. But mostly, I just stood there, let him sweat, then dropped this. She pulled out her phone and tapped it. The screen lit up with a paused frame from the video. Melissa, tangled in sheets, blurred out just enough to make it legal, but clear enough to make it devastating. I gave her a nod of respect. You didn't hesitate. Please, she said, sipping her latte like it was wine. I'd been waiting for that moment since the second his ego outgrew his vows. There was a brief pause. Not heavy, just reflective. She studied me for a beat. So, how are you really doing? I thought about it. About the silence in the house. The absence of her shoes by the door. The way the air felt easier to breathe. I'm good, I said. Better than I should be. She nodded like she understood too well. Let me guess, she said. People telling you not to make decisions out of anger. That time heals all things. That maybe she made a mistake. I tilted my head. You've heard those lines too? Every day? My sister told me I should go to counseling. My coworker said I should fight for my family. She rolled her eyes. I told them both the only fight I'm interested in now is the one where I win. We both chuckled at that. There was something strange and almost freeing about it, talking betrayal with someone who didn't need it sugar-coated. She tapped her nail against the rim of her cup. I'm not usually this petty, but this feels earned. I don't think it's petty, I said. It's clarity. Vanessa looked at me again, this time more gently. Well, thank you for the clarity. And the footage. And the clean break. You're welcome, I said. Anytime your husband decides to screw up again, you know who to call. She smiled wide. And for a moment, we just sat in it. Two people who'd been burned, but now held the match. The courthouse steps always feel colder after a hearing, no matter how the judge rules. That morning had been about paperwork. Nothing big, nothing dramatic. Just checking boxes. But I noticed the way Melissa looked at me across the aisle. No remorse. No softness. Just calculation. She didn't speak inside. She waited until we were alone. I had just stepped into the parking lot, still thumbing through a copy of the court minutes, when I heard her heels behind me. Click, click, click. Slower than usual. The sound of someone about to deliver a performance. Jake, she called out. I turned. Melissa stood by her silver car, arms folded over her chest, lips curled into a sharp little smile. That familiar expression she used to flash when she thought she had the upper hand. You look like you've lost weight, she said. Stress catching up to you? I didn't answer. Just let the silence settle. She took a few steps closer, the breeze catching her hair and tossing it just enough to look accidental. Her voice lowered into that tone she always used when she wanted to cut deep. I thought maybe you'd want to know, she said. Daniel's offered to help me find a place. Said I could move into one of his condos. Buckhead. You know, quiet, gated. Has a view. I raised my eyebrows slightly, but said nothing. She smiled wider. He makes more than you ever did, Jake. It's just stability, you know? Something I never had with your little projects and hourly invoices. There it was. The dig. The same old wound she knew how to press just right. I stared at her for a long second. So that's what this is? You're chasing condos now? I'm chasing a future, she snapped. You think this is hard for me? You think you're punishing me? I took a slow step closer until I could see the edge in her eyes that the smirk was trying to hide. You're not hurting me, Jake, she added, voice sharp. You're freeing me, and I'm going to live better than I ever did with you. He promised me that. I smiled then. Just a small one. Calm. That's not decided yet. She blinked. The words landed like a cold gust between us. What does that mean? She asked, voice dipping, unsure for the first time. I leaned in a fraction. It means Daniel's not the only one being watched. She shifted. That's a threat, she asked. No, I replied. That's a fact. For a second, her face faltered. Not enough for a stranger to notice. But I saw it. The drop in her expression, the flash of unease behind her mascara and arrogance. I turned and walked to my truck. Keys already in hand. Behind me, she called out again. But her voice had changed. No longer smug. Jake, what are you doing? I didn't answer. The sound of the door unlocking was louder than her question. I climbed in and shut the door gently. Not a slam, just quiet finality. From the driver's seat, I glanced once in the rearview mirror. She was still standing there, framed in the space between her car and mine, suddenly looking smaller than she had minutes ago. Because for the first time since this whole mess started, she didn't know what move I'd make next. And that terrified her. I was microwaving leftover pasta in the break room when I first heard her clear her throat. Mr. Hart. I turned, startled by how soft the voice was. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be there. Young, maybe mid-20s. Long sleeves despite the warmth, fidgeting with a folder tucked against her chest. I'd seen her around the firm, interning with admin, I think. But we'd never spoken beyond passing hellos. Yeah, I said, offering a polite smile. Just Jake's fine. You're Clara, right? She nodded. Didn't move. The microwave beeped behind me, but I didn't turn back. Something about her posture made me pause, shoulders tight, chin tucked, eyes that wouldn't hold contact for more than a blink. Can I help you with something? I wasn't sure if I should say anything, she whispered. But I saw your name on the court document you left on your desk this morning. I wasn't trying to read it. I was just dropping off the forms Mr. Dillon requested. I nodded slowly, still trying to piece it together. Her voice wavered. Is it about Daniel Mathers? My stomach sank. I hadn't said his name aloud in days. I hadn't needed to. But hearing it come out of her mouth made my blood cool instantly. Yes, I said. It is. She hesitated, then crossed the room like her legs were moving against orders. She set the folder on the counter and folded her arms across her stomach like she needed something to hold. I used to work for the Attorney General's office, she said. 2 summers ago. I was just an intern, unpaid, but he noticed me. I didn't say a word. Clara took a shaky breath. It started with compliments, then offers to mentor me. We went for coffee once, then drinks. A few weeks later, he asked if I'd like to come with him to Barcelona. Said he was speaking at a legal conference. Told me I could sit in, learn something, see the world. I paid for my own ticket. I clenched my jaw, already sensing where this was going. We got there, and the conference didn't exist, she said, her voice cracking. He told me plans changed. Said we should just enjoy the time. Then he started using my card for things. Room upgrades, restaurant bills. Said he'd wire me the money when we got back. I stared at her, stunned. And then, I asked. Clara's eyes welled up. She quickly looked away, blinking hard. Then I woke up one morning, and he was gone. Just gone. Took my passport by mistake, so I had to spend 3 extra days at the embassy trying to get home. The room went still. He blocked me on everything, she added. Social, email, phone. And when I tried to talk to someone at the office, they shut it down. Said there was no proof. Said I should be careful with stories like that. I just gave up. She looked down at her hands. I heard about your case. I wasn't going to say anything, but I stepped forward quietly. Clara, why are you telling me this? Because you're the first person who didn't sound scared of him, she whispered. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the hum of the vending machine. Then I pulled out a chair. Sit, I said gently. She looked startled, but obeyed. I didn't press her with more questions. I didn't need to. I could see it in her. The shame she didn't earn, the fear that had kept her quiet, and the tiny spark of hope she was barely letting herself feel. You're not alone now, I said, steady and firm. We're going to do something about this. Her lips quivered, and she nodded, a silent tear slipping down her cheek. And inside me, the storm that had been brewing finally found its lightning. The law office was tucked between a boutique coffee shop and an old bookstore on Peachtree. It didn't look like much from the outside, just another brass nameplate on the door, but inside, the walls were lined with framed certifications and case wins. Everything about the place felt sharp, focused, and built for battle. I sat across from Erin Tran, the kind of lawyer who didn't waste words. Her hair was tied back tight, her blazer pressed to the inch, and the look in her eyes said she'd already read everything I gave her twice before I walked in the room. Clara's affidavit is solid, she said, flipping a page. We've got timestamps from her boarding pass, receipts from her credit card, text exchanges confirming her arrangements with Mathers, and this? She tapped the statement Clara had written in her own hand. This reads like someone who has nothing left to protect. I nodded. Because she doesn't. Erin leaned back, tapping her pen against the folder. We'll start by filing a complaint with the State Bar and the Ethics Committee. That'll trigger a preliminary review. If they even glance at these records, they'll open an investigation. And if they don't? I asked. Her eyes sharpened. Then we go public. I slid a thumb drive across the table. There's more, I said. Other girls. Maybe not as bad, maybe worse. A few anonymous notes Clara says she received after word got around that she was involved with him. Women who didn't speak up, who still won't. Erin picked it up slowly. This guy's been protected for a long time, she said. But not anymore. She gave a tight nod. Once this hits the wire, it moves fast. His name's too high profile. The public's tired of wolves in suits. She stood and walked the folder to a locked cabinet, securing it like a weapon. By the time I left the office, the clouds had broken. For the first time in weeks, Atlanta's sky showed light. I walked the streets with something simmering just beneath my skin. Not rage, exactly, but something deeper. Purpose. 3 days later, it began. The first headline popped up on my phone while I was drinking coffee at my desk. State prosecutor under investigation for alleged misconduct involving former intern. By noon, it was everywhere. News stations, social feeds, podcasts. Some articles used words like allegations and unnamed sources. But others? They named Clara, showed her picture, linked her story to others. Phrases like pattern of abuse and ethics complaint pinning showed up over and over. I watched the reports roll in from my work computer. One station aired surveillance footage of Mathers leaving a courthouse parking lot looking panicked and pale. Another showed a panel of legal analysts dissecting his cases, questioning how many convictions had come from the same manipulative charm he used off the record. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just watched. A colleague passed by and glanced at the screen. Isn't that the guy? Yeah, I said. They paused. You're involved. I gave them the match, I said quietly. They lit the fire. Phones buzzed across desks. Someone in accounting called out. Hey, he's on channel 6 right now. They're saying he might be put on leave. In a blur of digital noise and public commentary, justice had started moving. But for me, it wasn't about the headlines. It wasn't about payback. It was about standing up when no one else had. For Clara. For the others. And yeah, for me too. Because some fires don't burn for revenge. Some burn to clear the way. If this part resonates, give the video a thumbs up. It was almost 9 p.m. when I heard the knock at my front door. Not a polite knock. Not the kind a neighbor gives. This one was slower, heavier, like someone wanted to be heard, but not welcomed. I glanced through the front window. There he was, Daniel Mathers, still in a tailored suit, though the jacket hung off his shoulders like it had lost its shape. His tie was loose, face pale, but jaw locked in the same smug angle he'd worn the day I found him in my bedroom. I opened the door, but didn't step outside. Jake, he said. Got a minute? I didn't answer. Just stood there, watching him. Let the silence force him to work for it. He gave a sharp exhale. I figured you'd be feeling pretty good about yourself right now. I leaned against the doorframe. Is that what you came here to say? No, he said. I came to remind you what you're playing with. I tilted my head slightly. You think this city wants a scandal like this at the top of the food chain? He asked. You think the press is going to keep loving Clara when they realize she followed me halfway across the world on her own dime? She was invited, I said calmly, and left behind. His eyes narrowed. You don't know how this game works. I know enough, I replied. I know what kind of man hides behind threats when his mask falls off. He took a step forward, lowering his voice. You've made enemies you can't even see, Jake. This little crusade you're on, it doesn't end with justice. It ends with regret. Yours. I almost laughed. Instead, I folded my arms and asked, Are you threatening me in front of my own house? I'm telling you to back off, he said, trying to sound composed. For your own sake. My office still has power, and I still have friends. I let that hang in the air for a second. Then I stepped fully out onto the porch. No, I said, voice low. What you have is a trail of people you stepped on, lied to, and discarded. And now you've got a mirror in your face. That's not my fault. That's yours. He blinked, stunned for just a moment. I walked past him, down the porch steps, letting the chill night air fill the space between us. You've already taken enough from others, I said. You're not taking silence too. He looked like he wanted to fire back, but no words came. Just a long, bitter stare. And I saw it. What he was really scared of. Not jail. Not exposure. But losing the one thing he had always relied on. Fear. He turned, finally, with a muttered curse under his breath. Started down the sidewalk. You forgot something, I called out. He paused, not looking back. My front door, I said. You're never welcome here again. He kept walking. By the time his car pulled away from the curb, the street had gone still again. Porch lights flickered in the distance. A dog barked a few houses down. I stood there for another minute, just breathing. Not angry. Not shaken. Just steady. He came to scare me. But what he didn't know was that fear had already moved out of this house, along with everything else that didn't belong. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I saw Clara again. We'd agreed to meet at a small cafe tucked inside Grant Park, the kind of place where the tables are iron, the chairs wobble slightly, and the world feels far away. The city was still buzzing with news stories, but in that little corner surrounded by oaks and early joggers, it felt like a pause button had been hit. Clara was already there when I arrived. Hood up, sunglasses on, head ducked low over a steaming mug. She looked up when she saw me, and for the first time, she actually smiled. Not the guarded, polite kind. A real one. Small but real. Hey, she said as I sat across from her. Hey. She hesitated for a second, then pulled her sunglasses off slowly. Her eyes were tired, but clearer than before. Stronger. I was afraid you wouldn't show. Why wouldn't I? I don't know, she said softly, staring at her hands. You've done enough. More than anyone else ever has. You mean more than he did? Her lip twitched. I used to think people like him were untouchable. That if someone like me ever raised her voice, I'd be the one who paid for it. You did speak up, I said. And now the whole city's listening. She nodded slowly. Then, blinking hard, she whispered, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't believed me. I leaned back, studying her. She was wearing the same long sleeves again, even though the morning was warm. But she sat straighter this time. She didn't shrink anymore. Most people didn't, she added. When I first told HR at the AG's office, they told me to take it as a compliment. That I was lucky he'd even noticed me. I clenched my jaw. She noticed. You know, she continued. My own sister asked me if I'd let him on. Like I was somehow responsible for being abandoned in a foreign country. She laughed, dry and bitter. No one ever told me it wasn't my fault. Not until you. There was a long pause. Then I said, you shouldn't have needed someone to tell you. Well, I did, she said, eyes shining. So thank you. I looked down for a second, then back at her. Let's just say I owed someone. She tilted her head. You don't strike me as the guilt-driven type. It's not guilt, I said. It's something else. I didn't explain it further, but I saw the curiosity flicker in her eyes. She didn't press. We sat there for a few minutes in comfortable quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't need filling. People passed us by, dog walkers, cyclists, a dad chasing a toddler with a runaway juice pouch. But in that small circle of stillness, it felt like something had finally leveled out. You think he'll really go down for it? She asked, not looking at me. I think the truth's loud now, I said. And once people hear it, it's hard to pretend they didn't. She nodded. I still get scared. Like it's all gonna flip and somehow I'll be the one on trial. That's how he wanted you to feel. She looked at me. And you? I gave a small smile. I'm done being scared. She reached across the table then, slowly, hesitantly, and placed her hand over mine. It wasn't romantic. It was stronger than that. It was gratitude, connection, defiance. A quiet declaration that said, we made it out. And neither of us were going back in. It was nearly dusk when he came again. I'd just stepped out onto the porch to water the potted rosemary Melissa never remembered to take with her. The sun was sliding low behind the rooftops, casting the whole block in that warm, end-of-day quiet. And then, there he was, Daniel Mathers. Not in a suit this time. No tie. No polished shoes. Just a wrinkled shirt, khakis that hadn't seen an iron in days, and a face that looked like it had stopped sleeping the moment the headlines hit. He walked up the sidewalk slowly, like a man approaching his own sentencing. I didn't move. He stopped at the foot of the steps, eyes hollow. Jake. I didn't answer. He shifted, nervous. Can I talk to you? I leaned on the railing, arms crossed. You're already doing it. He cleared his throat, looked down, then back up. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to defend anything. I wanted to face you. No lawyers. No threats. Just one man to another. That word caught my ear, man. Funny choice. He continued. I lost my job yesterday. Officially. They made it sound like it was voluntary, but we both know what it was. I said nothing. And Vanessa's divorcing me. Fast. Says she doesn't want another headline with her name in it. Still, I waited. He glanced around, rubbing his hands together. I've had people spit on me in public, Jake. Literally. At a gas station yesterday, a woman threw her coffee at my windshield. I nodded once. Sounds mild, considering. He almost smiled, but there wasn't enough left in him. I deserve some of it, he said. Probably most of it. No, I said flatly. You deserve all of it. He paused. Let that settle. I came because I guess I hope we could close this. I don't expect forgiveness, but maybe we don't have to keep dragging this out. Maybe we could shake hands and walk away. I'm done. You've made your point. He extended a hand, stiff and awkward, as if even he didn't believe in what he was offering. I stared at it for a long moment, then looked him straight in the eye. This isn't about hate, Daniel. He froze, still holding his hand out. It's about consequence, I continued. Something people like you have dodged your whole life. You walk in and out of lives like they're revolving doors, and the damage? That's someone else's job to clean up. He lowered his hand, jaw tightening. That girl, I said quietly. Clara, my wife. And not just them. There were others, weren't there? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I stepped down one step, not to intimidate, but to end it clearly, with no doubt. All of you thought no one was watching. That your names were too important, your suits too clean, your records too polished. But people were watching. I was. And now the whole city is. He swallowed hard. I'm not here to punish you, I said. Life's already taking care of that. I'm just making sure you don't skip the part where you feel it. He didn't argue, didn't plead. He just nodded. A slow, quiet nod, like a man finally realizing he'd stepped off a cliff a long time ago and only just now hit the ground. Then he turned and walked back the way he came. No threats, no smugness, just the slow shuffle of a man who used to be feared and now wasn't even worth being hated. I stepped back inside, shut the door behind me, and locked it. Not out of fear, out of finality. That chapter was done, and no matter how many times he knocked, it would never open again. The knock came just after midnight. Not soft, not patient. I was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water when the first bang rattled the door. Then came another, faster, louder, desperate. I didn't have to check the peephole. I already knew. Melissa. Her voice cracked through the wood like a fire alarm. Jake. Open the door. I stood still, the glass cold in my hand. I know you're in there. I saw the lights on. Don't ignore me. More pounding. Then the voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Not like this. Angry. Panicked. Hurt. You ruined everything, she screamed. Do you get that? You ruined my life. I walked to the door, but didn't unlock it. She kept going, words tumbling over each other. I lost everything because of you. Daniel won't even answer my calls. Vanessa's cutting me out of the apartment deal. Everyone thinks I'm trash now. Is that what you wanted? I placed my palm gently against the door. Not to open it, just to feel how far away she really was. You said you loved me, she continued, voice breaking. You said you'd never give up on us. I finally spoke, my voice low but clear. And I didn't. You gave up first. Silence for a second, then a soft, bitter laugh from the other side. Oh, so now you're the victim? Mr. Loyal Husband? You think being boring and predictable makes you a saint? No, I said. But being loyal, being consistent, being there, should have meant something. And you threw it away. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I made a mistake. No, I cut in. You made a choice. And so did I. She went quiet again. Then the sobbing started. Not performative. Not fake. Real. The kind that made your stomach twist if you weren't already hollowed out. But I didn't open the door. I just let it echo down the hallway, mixing with the rain beginning to fall again outside. Eventually, the banging stopped. So did her crying. And then I heard the quiet drag of a suitcase rolling away. I didn't look through the window. Didn't watch her leave. I just stood there, hand still on the door. The house was still. And so was I. 3 days passed. The house was quiet now, cleaner, lighter. No tension in the walls. No shadow of footsteps that used to walk out halfway through conversations. Just me, my coffee mug, and the sound of wind moving gently through the trees outside. I was on the porch, fixing a loose hinge on the railing when I heard the light tread of footsteps on the walkway. Not the heavy stomp of someone angry. This was different. I looked up. Clara. She was wearing a sundress, vibrant blue, loose curls pulled back, face glowing like she'd finally had a full night's sleep. She stood at the bottom of my steps, smiling in a way that felt unforced, open, honest. Hey, she said, a little shy, like this wasn't her usual kind of move. I leaned against the post, surprised but not unsettled. Hey yourself. She gestured to the porch. You always out here fixing something? Occupational habit, I said with a smile. Can't sit still too long. She climbed one step, then another. I was wondering if maybe you'd like to go out tonight. My eyebrows lifted slightly. A date. If you want to call it that, she said with a grin. Or just two people who've been through hell sharing dinner without ghosts at the table. I chuckled. I like that better. Her smile deepened. Good. I found a spot downtown. Outdoor seating, no TV screens, no ties required. I looked at her for a long second. The past weeks had felt like a war I hadn't trained for. But standing there, seeing her like this, free, lighter, it felt like something had been won. Give me 10 minutes, I said. Dinner was easy. That's the best word for it. Easy. She told me about her brother who builds guitars in North Carolina. I told her about my first job framing houses and how I once nailed my own glove to a beam by accident. She laughed so hard she nearly knocked over her drink. And that sound, her laughing, unguarded, it didn't fix everything. But it reminded me why I'd fought. As the check came and the candles burned low, she leaned forward, eyes soft. You know, she said, you didn't just stand up for me. You gave me back my voice. I met her gaze and answered quietly. Sometimes, fighting back means helping someone else stand again. We didn't rush to leave. We just sat there, letting the city hum around us, breathing in something neither of us had in a while. Hope. That was the end of my story. Clara could have stayed silent like so many before her, but she didn't. She stepped forward, even when the system had failed her once. Tell me honestly, did she do the right thing? Or would you have walked away? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit you somewhere deep, hit that like button and subscribe for more.